Advantage Vegas. Welcome to NHL Wraparound Stanley Cupdate for Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026. Smith and Morren joining you after Game 1, the Stanley Cup Final. 9 goals. And probably a little bit of an atypical opening game between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights, with Vegas prevailing late by a 5-4 score.
You know, usually in the finals, you've seen things tighten up down to where you get these 1-0, 3-2s, 4-3s. Rarely do you get 9 goals scored in the opening game of the final. And that's what you got in this game. And he's got the lead changing hands a couple of times within game 1. It was a special game, that's for sure. But the momentum shift was so obvious in this game, how the building was alive and raucous and then quieted right down. And you saw the Hurricanes get back on their heels, and then they'd get another goal and they'd be back up on their toes again. It was fascinating, really.
This series started much like so many of the games that we've seen with the Hurricanes this year, starting quick, getting on the board fast. 25 seconds in, Shea Theodore is caught flat at the Carolina blue line. Nikolai Ehlers gets the puck past him, races down that left side, and beats Carter Hart to make it 1-0. Jacob Slavin with a crossbar maybe a minute or so later. So we're seeing from the outset much of what we saw for the first 3 rounds for the Hurricanes.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to that at 12:08, perhaps the best player on the Vegas Golden Knights, being Jack Eichel, makes a really ill-timed lateral pass across the blue line. It gets picked off by Chatfield. And one thing that's obvious about Carolina is they've got them ready to spring at a moment's notice. So they're told, you got to get ready to go. As soon as we get possession, you go. And again, on this one, Chatfield takes possession, and Ehlers is gone. And the pass goes right to Ehlers. He goes right in, and it's 2-0. And, you know, I'm sure the people at Lenovo Center were seeing Stanley Cups dancing in their heads.
Well, ESPN aired a good piece of John Tortorella mic'd during one of the breaks, and he got his team together and said, stop going east-west. Stop going side to side. Watch those lateral passes. Get pucks in deep. 80 seconds later, Shea Theodore gets Golden Knights on the board. Shot goes through a screen set by Keegan Colasar, and it deflects in off Eric Robinson, makes it 2-1. And at that point, you could see where this first of the momentum shifts were starting to take place.
And I think 2-1 going into the locker room, it was okay. The crowd was still thinking, okay, well, they got 1 goal. We're dominating them. But that wasn't to be.
The Hurricanes had a chance to extend their lead to 3-1 late in the first period. Logan Stankoven stopped by Carter Hart on a breakaway. And then in the second period, we really saw the Golden Knights start to flex. 30 seconds in, it's Eichel to Barbashev in the circle, and he goes high blocker on Freddie Anderson to make it 2-2. This was originated by a Jacob Slavin turnover, perhaps the most dependable defenseman on the Hurricanes. This is a retrieval after a missed shot by Eichel that this goal scores, and this is starting to underscore some of the down-low play and offensive pressure that Vegas is starting to exert.
Absolutely. And you know what? The other thing is, I thought Carolina completely changed after that second goal. They weren't the same aggressive team. They were back on their heels. They were representative of the feeling in the whole building, which was, oh no, oh God, what's happening here? And sure enough, it was a different game from that point on.
4:05 later, even though they lost the faceoff, Brett Howden does the work, gets it to Mitch Marner, and in front to William Karlsson, and it's 3-2. All 3 of these goals as a result of some form of grunt work by the Golden Knights.
Yes, but the magical thing of this goal was Mitch Marner, no look, backhand pass out to Karlsson, one-timer over the pad. I mean, the more Marner plays, and we're into the final now, the more special he looks. And that was a spectacular play.
But it was Howden's work off that lost faceoff, and they're starting to win these board battles. So they get their first lead of the game. But at 12:42, remember what we said about Torts warning about those side-to-side passes?
Mm-hmm. Here comes another one.
Oh, yes. Noah Hannafin with a turnover on an attempted diagonal zone exit pass. It hits Jordan Martinook, goes to AndreMIller, and he gets it to Jordan Staal, who goes high blocker, and it's 3-3 heading into the second intermission. Early third period. More pressure by the Golden Knights in the offensive zone. This time, it's Chatfield with a soft clearing attempt under pressure, and Theodore's pass is directed in by Howden for his playoff-leading 11th goal.
This also was a pin in the proverbial balloon for the Hurricanes, as all the momentum that Jordan Staal's goal had given them by tying it now burst again.
So then we had a little bit of controversy as we got in towards the second half of the third period. There was a questionable icing call in which I personally thought that Cole Smith beat Shane Gostisbehere to the puck. It was called icing anyway, and to add insult to injury, off a face-off, Gostisbehere ties it high blocker with 8:41 left in regulation.
And the one thing I hate about this no-touch icing is it's a judgment call. You seem to not be able to get a clear definition of what the linesman's looking for. What was explained by Dave Jackson on the show was that whoever the linesman thinks will get to the puck first, that's the way the icing goes. It's either a non-call or an icing call. And in this case, he thought Gostisbehere would get to the puck first. It's such a judgment call. It's such an argumentative thing that, you know, naturally, if you're a Vegas fan or a Vegas player or a Vegas coach, you're going to think that they should have won that race. And on the other hand, if you're cheering for Carolina or seeing it through their glasses, you're going to think that they won the race. And just one man in the entire world makes that decision, and that's that linesman.
Not the first time we've seen it in these playoffs, huh?
For sure. And we're going to see it a lot more, too.
Couple of big saves by both goaltenders as we start to go towards the final minutes. First, Anderson makes a stop with 6:30 left on a puck that caromed off Colton Sisson's skate. And then Carter Hart glove stop on Seth Jarvis with 3:43 left. 19 seconds after that, Tomas Hertl with a nice exchange with Sissons, and he finishes it off from the slot with 3:24 left in regulation. This is a stunner.
Absolutely is a stunner because, you know, with a 2-0 lead, you think, well, Carolina's often flying. They're catching Vegas unaware. It's a new opponent for Vegas. And then all of a sudden, it's 2-2. Then it's 3-2 Vegas, and 3-3. And then 4-3, and then 4-4. And then all of a sudden, just when you think that Carolina's back in it, Tomas Hertl gets this goal. And I don't know about you, but I thought it was over as soon as he got that. I didn't think there's any way Carolina was tying it up with 3:24 to go.
The checking that Vegas did after this goal for about 2.5 minutes was absolutely exemplary. Carolina couldn't get the puck into the Vegas zone, couldn't get possession. Finally, after a couple of icings, they had one final shot, and Alexander Nikishin's blast hit Marner in the slot, caromed into the corner, and that's it. Home ice, Golden Knights.
Game 2, Thursday at 8. That's what Carolina Hurricanes have to look forward to. But Rod Brind'Amour will go over these tapes with the teams, look at it, figure out what they didn't do. And I don't think there's going to be 9 goals scored in game 2.
I don't think there is either, but I do believe that the one thing that we saw in this game was Vegas took the early body blow from the Hurricanes. And when they were able to push back and they were able to forecheck, we have not seen that against Carolina in any of their prior three opponents, be it Ottawa, Philadelphia, or Montreal. This is the first time they have been pushed into their own end. I don't feel that they reacted very well to it the entire night because all 5 goals were, as a result, of work down low by the Golden Knights.
But see, I see it differently. Carolina's got a 2-0 lead. They're on their toes. They're flying. They're just flying. All of a sudden, it gets tied up 2-2. Of course, it's going to be easier for Vegas to forecheck and hem them in because they're back on their heels now. Carolina is. I think it's more a case of the momentum change than anything else. And when the momentum changes, the team that's caught up and has the momentum is forechecking hard. The other team's back on their heels. And I think had the game not gotten tied, then you would have seen it the other way the whole game. Because, for example, Eichel made a horrific play early in the game. Mm-hmm. How could that be the same guy that was a star later on? Well, why? Because momentum changed and his body changed. That's more the way I see it than anything else. So I think we're both right. Carolina has not seen this before, but Carolina was not prepared for it either because they were back on their heels.
But some of those were self-inflicted wounds, that couple of those turnovers by reliable defensemen in Chatfield and Slavin.
They could be, but it still puts you back on your heels. When you get a 2-0 lead and you think, here we go, and suddenly it's not here we go, but oh my God, you're back on your heels, and that leaves the other team in command for a little while until you can get that next goal. But they didn't get that next goal. Vegas got the next goal, and we kept going with Vegas having the momentum.
Looking forward to seeing the adjustments that both teams make heading into Game 2. As Neil said, Thursday, 8 o'clock, ABC in the States, and Sportsnet and CBC in Canada. And some other news as we wrap up the show today. It was only Tuesday, Neil, that we dropped the Colorado Avalanche spring cleaning, and we had mentioned Chris McFarland several times in that particular episode, but McFarland is gone, off to Nashville, where he now takes his GM title to the Music City and adds president to it, replacing Barry Trotz, who was planning to step down after the draft anyway, after 3 seasons with Nashville. In Colorado, Joe Sakic will assume the GM duties for the foreseeable future and will oversee the draft. What do you make of it?
It's strange. It's very strange. It's very seldom that you see a GM who's not been fired, whose contract hasn't expired, move from one club to the other, and especially before the Stanley Cup is over. Chris McFarland has obviously done a good job working with Joe Sakic. He became the GM shortly after they won the Cup in 22. They have been a 100-plus point team year after year. Why he wanted to go there must be because of the president's title and because of the raise in compensation. It has to be. And now Joe Sakic will be back in the hockey role again, now assuming the GM duties and running the draft. But it's just strange. You don't see this very often, that the Avalanche would give permission to the Predators to talk to their in-house GM.
As you just said, perhaps that title carried a lot more weight. And according to some sources, McFarland also wanted to be closer to family. So that's certainly a major move. And then on Monday evening, as we go from the 2025-26 regular season penthouse, we go to the outhouse because Manny Malhotra has been named the 23rd head coach in Canucks history. He was the head coach of their minor league affiliate in Abbotsford the last 2 seasons. The team won the Calder Cup under Malhotra's stewardship in 2025, but missed the playoffs this past season. 991 NHL games with 7 teams, including the Canucks, and he was drafted 7th overall by one Neil Smith in 1998.
Almost got to 1,000 games, was 9 games away from that. That's not a bad pick when you pick a guy in the first round that plays 1,000 games. Rangers were stupid enough to let him go and get rid of him to Dallas Stars as soon as Sather got there. But he did play 3 seasons with the Sedin twins, who are now co-presidents of the Vancouver Canucks. And the general manager, Ryan Johnson, has been the Abbotsford general manager the last few years. So everybody knew Manny. Manny knew them, and so they know what they're getting, and Manny hopefully knows what he's getting himself into.
He had a pretty serious eye injury, which really curtailed his career. But outside of that, everybody looks at him as a good student of the game. Perhaps you saw that as early as when you drafted him back in '98. So given the fact that Adam Foote gone after a year and Malhotra is really starting at the bottom, there's no place for this team to go but up. What can he bring that team that is unique, that can lift them out of the league cellar and perhaps get them back to respectability?
Well, he's a very young guy who's going to have a different tilt on the game than, for example, Adam Foote, who is an excellent hockey player. I don't know what he was like as a coach, but he came from a different era. And perhaps Malhotra coaching young guys in the last couple of years in the organization, some of them probably playing on the Canucks next year. He'll know the young guys. He'll have a different slant on how to teach, how to lead. And, perhaps that went into the thinking. I think, though, that he will bring a great mind to the Vancouver Canucks.
Final note, on Tuesday, it was announced that Zach Werenski of the Columbus Blue Jackets wins his first Norris Trophy as top defenseman in the NHL, beating out Cale Makar and Rasmus Dahlin. I don't think we had Werenski. I think you had Makar and I had Dahlin when we made our picks.
Doesn't mean we're wrong, though, because when you look at the people that are voting for these awards these days, it's very curious why they're voting for top awards like this. I don't know how you come up with Zach Werenski. Great defenseman, great offensive numbers for Columbus, but Cale Makar led his team to the President's Trophy and an outstanding season. And Rasmus Dahlin, as the captain of the Buffalo Sabres, broke a 14-year curse and got the Buffalo Sabres into the playoffs for the first time this year. So the Blue Jackets, as we all know, missed the playoffs. It's really befuddling to me how they came up with Werenski.
He was runner-up to Makar a year ago, second in defense, scoring with 81 points, only trailing Evan Bouchard of Edmonton, who finished fourth. But something that I found curious is that his +7 was second lowest among the top 14 scoring defensemen in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things there. But as I told you, Vic, I was talking to somebody today about this award and about Werenski getting it. And he said to me quite flat out, and he's been around the league a long, long time. He said, if you saw the people that are voting for these awards now, you wouldn't be surprised at anything. Because remember, there's no longer the writers. It's no longer the guys that write for the newspapers that study the game. You've got bloggers and podcasters and all kinds of different people that get a vote for some of these awards. So are they students of the game? Have they been watching it a long time? I don't know. But according to my source, no.
Just to set the record straight, these podcasters could vote.
We should be voting. We've been around a lot longer than almost all of these other people.
Our website is NHLWraparound.com. Our next Stanley Cup date will be after Game 2. Stanley Cup Final between Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights. And our next spring cleaning coming up in the next few days, the Montreal Canadiens. Thanks for tuning in.